I'm Adrian, the cruise and travel guy, and in today's video I'm going to take you on one of Australia's great railway journeys. So if you enjoy learning about different types of travel, then give the video a thumbs up for that. Leave an emoji in the comments below to let me know what your favourite way to travel is. Remember, when it's time to plan your next holiday, head to my website first, where you can search, compare and book. The Indian Pacific ranks among the world's great railway journeys. The line has linked the Indian Ocean in the west and the Pacific Ocean in the east since 1970, when track gauge unification across the states made a continuous railway journey possible. The line was managed by 4 government railway administrations until 1993, when full ownership was transferred to Australian National Railways, an agency of the Australian government. In 1997, the Indian Pacific was privatised when it was sold to Great Southern Rail. Today, after numerous corporate ownership changes, the Indian Pacific operates under the management of Journey Beyond. The company also operates a number of other lines, including the Garn, the Overland, and the Great Southern. For 2025, the Indian Pacific operates a 3-night westbound journey, departing Sydney every Wednesday and arriving in Perth on Saturday. The 4-night eastbound journey departs Perth on Saturday and arrives in Sydney on Wednesday. But if, like me, you're short on time, you also have the option of starting your trip in Adelaide. The reality is that I booked this trip only 2 weeks ago, pretty much to the day. The only thing that was available back then was a gold single sleeper cabin. So I am doing basically 2 nights on board the Indian Pacific from Adelaide to Sydney, and I'm actually really excited to check this out. I've wanted to do it for a long time, and finally we'll get the opportunity to do it. Adelaide was added as a stop along the Indian Pacific's route in the 1980s and now acts as an official start and end point for the journey. Travellers can embark in Adelaide to head east like I am, or west to Perth. Likewise, they can end their railway journey in the South Australian capital city. Travellers boarding in Adelaide are welcomed here at Adelaide Parklands Terminal with a welcome dinner, with check-in normally scheduled for between 5:30 and 6:30, but a week ago I received an email telling me that check-in had moved to between 3:30 and 4:30. The email explained that our welcome dinner had changed, with the earlier check-in time allowing for an improved dinner experience in Adelaide's Barossa Valley, one of the world's and definitely Australia's great wine regions. I arrived at the terminal just before 3:30 PM and waited only a few minutes before being called forward to complete check-in. The terminal was quiet, with only 20 or so passengers joining the trip in Adelaide. When it comes to luggage and packing, passengers are permitted to bring 1 carry-on size suitcase plus a bag on board the train. Checked baggage or luggage will be stored on board and returned at the end of the journey, so you must pack specifically for your time on board. My cabin luggage was taken from me at check-in, and I was told it would be waiting in my cabin later that evening. While it was efficient and friendly, the rest of the check-in experience was a letdown. The email I had received a week prior explained that during check-in, there would be a live musician and light refreshments, but this wasn't the case. Instead of music, the terminal staff and those of us joining the Indian Pacific in Adelaide enjoyed the ambience of a stifling hot terminal on a 35-degree summer day with no functioning air conditioning. After about half an hour of sweating through my clothes, I asked if there was water available, and only at that time was bottled water supplied, with everyone making a beeline for them. Then apples, yes, a bowl of apples, was offered around. The new arrangements include a 4:40 PM transfer to the Seppeltsfield winery in the Barossa Valley. I've been to the Barossa Valley once previously and was really excited to experience it again, but was completely unsure about what was specifically on offer. This seemed to be a common thread of this trip, where communication seemed lacking. At check-in, I was told that our visit to the winery would include a tour of a vintage cellar, but the rest would be a surprise. In a way, it was kind of exciting not knowing what was coming. We arrived at the beautiful grounds and walked over to a large shed. There were tables and chairs set up, and we were soon offered a variety of wines to enjoy, with most opting for something bubbly. It was a great opportunity to meet some of my fellow travellers for the first time, with quite a few opting to travel alone during this journey. And it was at this time that I realised there was no tour of a vintage cellar. Those who had been on board since Perth soon arrived, and we all made our way inside the shed. Long tables were beautifully set for our welcome dinner. With plenty of free-flowing wine on offer, it wasn't long before everyone was enjoying each other's company. There was a delicious dinner spread, and it was all served family style. It was a great icebreaker in many ways, as people, even those travelling with others, were all incredibly friendly and outgoing. The live music that had been promised during check-in made an appearance later on during dinner, and quite a few people were soon up dancing in the heat of summer. Many made a break for the fresh air outside, where the landscape and sunset proved incredibly picturesque. Soon enough though, it was time for the return trip to the waiting Indian Pacific. As the coaches returned to the Adelaide Parklands terminal, the space began to fill while we waited about 10 minutes for boarding to commence. I later learned there were about 190 passengers on board the 808-metre long train. Because of that, the carriages were split across 2 platforms. I was in Car A and excitedly made my way along Platform 1 to the carriage. The Indian Pacific offers 3 service levels: Gold Single and Gold Twin, Gold Premium and Platinum. Platinum is the highest grade and includes a cabin that's almost double the size of the Gold Twin, as well as an ensuite bathroom with separate shower and additional onboard perks and more luxurious dining and lounge cars. Gold Premium is a new edition which features carriages that have been refurbished in a contemporary style, with slightly larger cabins, plus more modern dining and lounge cars. Gold Twin and Gold Single, the cabin type I'm travelling in, share the same dining and lounge car, and are the most basic of the bunch. Gold Twin cabins feature a small ensuite bathroom, while Gold Single cabins have shared bathroom facilities. Well, here's my cabin, if you can call it that. The Gold Single cabins are located within this meandering hallway behind accordion-style doors. It's super compact but well designed for the space. In day mode, there's a chair, table and ottoman. There are few storage nooks, but 3 power outlets, which was 2 more than I was expecting. The restrictions around luggage make a lot more sense once you see just how little storage there is. Living in here for any amount of time definitely requires a little bit of planning and organisation. A small wash basin was good to have, and there was a bath mat and bath towel, plus toiletries. The carriage offered 2 shared shower suites with toilets, and an additional 2 toilets on the other end of the carriage. I'm not sure where everything's meant to go. Bathroom's a big size. There's nowhere to put anything. I have a floor mat, a bath towel, change of clothes, toiletries, and I don't know where to put anything. There's nowhere to put anything. While I appreciated the bathroom's size, it was not very user-friendly. I had hoped there was somewhere to set down my things, but couldn't find anywhere suitable. Nevertheless, the shower was comparatively huge. The amenities provided were nice enough, and the water pressure and temperature were excellent. And importantly, the bathrooms were always kept clean during the trip. After freshening up, it was time to check out the cabin in night mode. The bed folds down from the wall and is actually quite long but fairly narrow, with a relatively firm mattress. Light switches and a shelf are located beside the bed, which was convenient, plus there was a nightlight. There's something very alluring and fun about watching the world go by just outside your window while you lay in bed. Getting actual sleep on a moving train though, well, that's a different story. I've just woken up. I think we're very close to the border of New South Wales and South Australia. So we're still in South Australia, but we'll be at Broken Hill in New South Wales very soon. Not a great night rest. A lot of movement, noise. I do recommend earplugs and an eye mask. Thank you, Fiji Airways. But yes, I put the blind down and it kept banging. So I just
roll the duck up. So that's why this is important, because there are lights as you go past. Interesting.
Soon enough, and as we approached our first stop in Broken Hill, it was time for my first onboard dining experience. Breakfast was served during an open seating period between 6 AM and 8 AM. I made my way over to the lounge car and opted to first enjoy a coffee. After a restless night, my flat white went down extremely well. On board, basically everything is included in the cost of your fare. Importantly, that means all food and beverages, including beer, wine, spirits, and cocktails. I made my way into the dining car, where tables are set for 4 passengers. That means you will be seated with other people. It was a great opportunity to connect and meet others, and is a real win for solo travelers who might be looking for an icebreaker. The breakfast menu is simple and the food provided delicious. I opted for the parfait and the full breakfast, which came with perfectly poached eggs. Toasted breads are supplied for the table. I'm not a big breakfast eater, but all in all, I enjoyed my first dining experience on the Indian Pacific. Off-train experiences are also included in the cost of your fare. Once your booking has been confirmed, you can head online to review the various tour options and select a first and second preference. In Broken Hill, travelers had 5 to choose from, but I couldn't go past Shalita, Queen of the Outback, and I'm glad I didn't, because it proved to be the fun choice. Everyone was supplied with a lanyard and card that indicated the chosen tour, and we made our way off the train at about 8:30 AM. The train's length meant it had to move along the platform for other guests to disembark, and we waited streetside for the rest of the group to join us. The tour kicked off with a walk through central Broken Hill, where we got to see the Outback City's highlights. Shalita led the way through the town, providing us with entertaining commentary. Later, we boarded a coach for the short drive up to the Miners' Memorial, where those whose lives were lost while working in the mines have been commemorated. The high vantage point also gave us the best view in town to take in the Indian Pacific's 33 carriages. While on average the train is around 750 meters in length, during our trip it clocked in at 808. The tour then continued with another short drive over to the Tipsy Camel, where all travelers enjoyed some country hospitality with a range of drinks and small bites. Shalita, full name Shalita Buffet, put on a fantastic show with music, lip syncing and dancing, and eventually bingo, in which I was one of the 3 winners. I had to step out of this event just to explain to you in the moment how fun it is. It's so much fun. It's really, really cool. I love the energy that all the people that are on this tour are bringing to it. And it's just really enjoyable. And again, going into this, I didn't know what to expect. Very much a last minute thing. So to come here and meet people and have fun and be entertained. And it's really, really good. This is the type of thing that feels priceless, if that makes sense. And I should add that I look this way because it's 40 something degrees and there's no air conditioning in here. Well, I think that said it all, but it was a fantastic morning out, and we then returned to the train a little after midday. It's time for my first lunch on board the Indian Pacific, so I'm about to head over to the dining car now, where I'll get to sample what should be some pretty amazing cuisine. For the remainder of the trip, I was provided with a dining card that indicated the rest of my meal times on board. Like breakfast, lunchtime meant meeting new people, and over a light but delicious lunch, I had one of the best conversations with a husband and wife couple who lived through the devastation of Cyclone Tracy in 1974. Over a glass of wine and the incredible views that passed, I enjoyed learning about the lives of my table mates before making my way back over to the lounge car for a few afternoon drinks. The lounge car is essentially the social spot on board with comfortable, if dated, surrounds. These are designed to highlight the passing landscape. From the bar I enjoyed a drink as the view continued to change. Live music added to the ambience as the Indian Pacific made its way close to the Menindee Lakes. These are an incredibly important water source for the region's people and animals, particularly birds. This was just a brilliant afternoon and it felt like a real treat to experience these views. After a little downtime, I changed for dinner, but it was at this time that we experienced what must have been the roughest part of the journey. I was warned by a few people that the track between Broken Hill and Sydney was in particularly bad shape, and I can now confirm it is. Most of the footage I shot during my first and final dinner on board is super shaky, so you'll probably see what I'm talking about. For dinner, a 3-course meal is provided. Although I only had a limited number of dining experiences on board, I will say that they were all fantastic. The food is so well prepared, especially knowing how tight the galley must be and just how intensely the movement can feel while on board the train. My salmon gravlax was a light, fresh start to dinner, and I was happy to not have chosen the soup as I'm sure I would have worn it. For my main course, the lamb was perfectly tender and paired exceptionally well with the puree and béarnaise sauce. The cheese course was a perfect end. The food on board hits the mark for being purposeful, flavorful, well presented and importantly well cooked. It's filling without being too much and I really appreciated it. What I enjoyed most of all though was the stunning view. As the sun set and the sky turned pink, the Australian outback looked especially beautiful. I finished up my last night on board with a nightcap in the lounge car. I should also point out that snacks such as crisps or potato chips were available at the bar upon request. Returning to my cabin, I did my best to stay steady on my feet. As someone who cruises a lot on ships, this is a very distinct and different movement experience. There's a lot of jolting, as you can probably tell maybe, and it's just different. Train travel is very unique. I do love it. There's something about being able to see from your window out to the landscape as it passes, which is very unique and very fun and very cool. I would do it again though. And with that vote of confidence, I readied for bed, determined to get at least one good night's rest on board. The fact that I managed to record these videos overnight would seem to indicate failure, and with the restaurant opening for breakfast at 6 AM, I decided to give up on rest a little after 5.
Sleeping on the train has been a bit of a challenge, so with the movement and the noise, I haven't been getting that much sleep, although night 2, which I've just woken up from, wasn't as bad as night 1. I think the track was worse, but I think I got used to it. So I feel like with more time on board, you would probably get used to the movement, the jolting, the noises. Anyway, I took advantage of this morning's early wake up to jump into the shower suites and freshen up.
As the sun rose, I made my way over to the dining car where a limited menu was on offer. This morning there was no starter, but breakfast was once again delicious, and my eggs were perfectly poached, something I can't always say is possible on a cruise ship. The Indian Pacific was due to arrive in the Blue Mountains at around 8 AM, and before the trip, passengers had the chance to book an off-train experience or opt to stay on board the train for the journey into Sydney's Central Station. Being a Sydney sider, I've visited the Blue Mountains countless times, and with such limited time on board to begin with, I chose to opt out of the tours and remain on board. I had chosen to remain on the train from the Blue Mountains so that I could continue this journey on the Indian Pacific into Central Station, but unfortunately that wasn't to be. We were informed that due to industrial action, the train journey would conclude in Lithgow, about 2 hours away from our destination by road. I was really disappointed with this, as it meant concluding the trip around 4 hours ahead of schedule and missing out on a part of the journey I had been really looking forward to. Although the letter said we could participate in the off-train tour or continue on to Central Station directly by coach, there was no communication from the staff on board the train with respect to being offered the option of selecting a tour instead of the direct transfer back to Sydney after the letter came through. Only after inquiring was I told that it would be possible to change, but I feel that for an advertised luxury experience, this should have been handled and communicated better on board. You know, part of me came into this thinking that it would be like a cruise. And in some ways it is, but in many other ways it isn't like a cruise. And I think that's actually one of the best things about train travel. Meeting people has been amazing. I think in that similar way to cruising, people have a sense of camaraderie. You're all doing the same thing and having a shared experience. And that isn't unique to cruising. And if anything, is probably even heightened in the context of a train. I've met some amazing people on here. Shortly after 8 AM, it was time to get off the train. All passengers, regardless of whether they were on one of the tours or heading through to Central like me, were directed to leave their luggage on a truck which would make its way separately to Central Station. After boarding the coach, we had a 40-minute wait before it left, as we had to wait for the Indian Pacific to move along the platform and allow all of the other passengers to disembark. Understandably, industrial action is outside of the control of Journey Beyond, and to their credit, the transfer was comfortable and enjoyable. We had a 30-minute comfort stop in the Blue Mountains, providing all of us with a chance to enjoy some fresh air and the incredible views of the Three Sisters and neighbouring valleys from Echo Point. We reached Central Station at about 10 to 12 and had a short wait on the platform before the luggage eventually arrived about 15 minutes later. I then made my way over to a commuter train for the journey back towards home. And now, in very anticlimactic fashion, I'm on a regular commuter train heading back towards home. And I have a lot of thoughts about this trip. Ultimately, this was an amazing experience. I can see why people gravitate towards train travel, and if anything, it's only opened my appetite for more. The staff on board the Indian Pacific were lovely, very professional, but also friendly. The food was fantastic, and as I mentioned, I met some brilliant people. There are some shortcomings. For one, communication needs some work. I didn't feel like I was always on the same page with what was going on. I think joining midway through the trip might have contributed to that sense. Shortcomings during check-in and then at the conclusion of the trip were disappointing, particularly considering how short the trip is. And at just over 1,700 Australian dollars for effectively a day and a half, it's not cheap, and I expected a higher caliber of overall cohesion that I felt was missing. Having said that, I would happily do it again, maybe in a bigger cabin. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up, and whenever you're ready to plan your next trip, head to my website first, and give me a follow on Facebook and Instagram to stay up to date with my travels live. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you soon.